thank you to all of you. I don't know about all of you, but I get very inspired when I come to this every year. And every year the inspiration stays with me just a little bit longer. So we have been involved in this for 3 years, and we're so excited. Before I introduce the finalists here, I do want to just talk about our own ripple effect at Discover. So when we did this 3 years ago, we provided the sponsorship that allowed the winner to take that money and further their studies in women's studies. What we did this past year, and we have a fantastic group of women at Discover that created an employee connection group called Power. And many members of that Power group, there are about 40 of them, that read hundreds of these essays that came in and dwindled it down, though I know the task was very hard, to the 5 finalists that you're going to hear from today. So we engaged and shared value in a very different way for us, and we're very proud that we could participate not just with the financial support, but with the really the people support and the inspiration that that did for people starting in July. So without further ado, though I do want to say that this year's essay topics focused on a few things. Clearly, creating shared value, increasing women's representation on corporate boards, which is important to many in this room, increasing representation in the STEM fields, and also building a culture that is supportive of working parents. And so you're going to hear a little bit more about each of that from our finalists. So let me introduce these fantastic young ladies that I got a little chance to meet yesterday. Morgan DiCarlo is from Thiels, New York, and is a sophomore at Stony Brook University, where she majors in civil engineering as part of the Women in Science and Engineering Honors Program. And Morgan was saying that Stony Brook is one of the few universities that actually have this as an integrated program. She is the founding president of the university's American Society of Civil Engineers, is passionate about inspiring girls to pursue STEM careers, which she discussed in her essay, and she also promised me that she's going to now connect with my daughter, who is 14 years old, and continue to inspire her as well. So welcome, Morgan.
Thank you.
Next, we have Nadia Gathers. Nadia is a junior from Buffalo, New York, studying social entrepreneurship at Converse College in South Carolina. Nadia's Advancing Aspirations Global Scholarship essay focused on how the principle of creating shared value could be an alternative to quotas in increasing women's representation on corporate boards. So we're going to look forward to hearing your comments on that. Sitting next to Nadia is Sarah Hubbard from Round Rock, Texas. Sarah is a freshman at the University of Washington in Seattle, majoring in computer engineering. Her essay examined the boundaries keeping women from thriving in STEM fields, and not only about that, but also proposed a program she calls 30 by 30, which would increase the number of women on NASDAQ company boards from 3 to 30 by the year 2030. She's also a marketing person. Our next scholarship finalist is Emily Payne, who is a junior from Pittsburgh. Emily is a sociology and French double major at the University of William and Jefferson College in Pennsylvania. She plans to explore her passion for women's studies further next semester while studying in France, and we're all very envious of that. Her scholarship essay argued that the support of working parents is beneficial to a company's bottom line and recommended policies to foster a parent-friendly corporate culture. Our final scholarship finalist is Rachel Larson, who was unable to join us today, and I'll tell you why in a moment. But I do know her mom is here. Could we just give a shout out to Mom, and where are you? All right. I should also say that Sarah's parents are here, so the Hubbards, can you just give a wave too? It's great to have that support. So Rachel can't be here because she's gaining international exposure, studying global health and post-conflict transformation in northern Uganda. In these studies, Rachel has chosen to focus on the causes of Ugandan women's underrepresentation in STEM and how this is impacting the region's recovery. In her scholarship essay, she discussed how stereotypes deter girls from engaging in math and science, and recommended alternative ways of framing the STEM curriculum to increase its appeal among young people. I already feel like I have not achieved enough in my life. So, without further ado, we are going to hear from these young ladies. So, Sarah, first, tell us about your research and the program that you proposed in your essay.
Okay, so
keep talking.
It works. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm studying hopefully computer science, computer engineering, University of Washington. So when I saw the women in STEM, I was like, oh, perfect. This is right up my alley. You know, obviously in my classes, you know, even just by observation, I noticed, okay, well, I'm like one of the only girls in any of these rooms. And so I started doing some research on it, found, you know, more women are graduating with degrees in science than men, and also outperforming men academically. Still a huge persistent gap in the field. And then also was looking at just kind of like public policy and how the U.S. is one of the only industrialized nations without a paid maternity leave policy in place. So just kind of was looking at, okay, what's wrong here? Like, what are the factors keeping women away from pursuing STEM fields, and why are they not staying in them after they graduate with these degrees in science? So then I had come up with the organization 30 by 30, which she kind of touched on. The slogan is kind of 30 women CEOs by 2030, and that's in the NASDAQ 100. So the NASDAQ 100 is a list of basically the top 100 firms that are like heavily weighted in science and technology sort of fields. So the CEOs of these companies are the leaders, the innovators, the faces of STEM, who are really like innovating the world, right? So I did some research, had to look up every single company individually, and out of all 100, only 3 have women CEOs, which I saw is a huge problem because, you know, they're just not being represented enough. And there's always this quote, you can't be what you can't see. And so, you know, when women aren't being, you know, represented equally, and that's, I mean, that's who you see when you're looking at these big companies, right? So 30 by 30, and it's written like there's 2 X's, that's like the double chromosome, like X chromosome for women. So that's kind of like the big motto of getting more women to be the face of STEM, because, you know, when you can see something, then I'm inspired to like go out there and be one of those CEOs. So that's kind of broken off into 2 branches based on my research and what I thought was like most relevant to help fixing. So the 2 branches of that, the first one is sort of the pre-career front, right? So getting younger girls and women engaged in, you know, even considering STEM as an option. And so I kind of go into my paper a little bit more about how possibly like bringing in STEM professionals like to the schools to teach. I mean, so inspiring if you have a teacher who's really passionate about what they're talking about. And then also they can act as a mentor for those younger students too. And I was a Girl Scout my whole life, so like the power of mentorship is right there, yeah. And so, you know, I go into my paper a little bit more about how possibly you could provide like student loan forgiveness for, you know, younger like undergrads who are just graduating in those fields to come back and like give back a little bit, creating that like shared value, inspiring younger kids, right, to like pursue what they're passionate about. And then the other branch of 30 by 30 would kind of be the political advocacy portion. So that would be called my Women in the Workplace kind of thing. And, you know, women in the workplace is no longer a special interest group, but yet we're still not being like represented equally. So that's kind of like establishing the, you know, paid maternity leave policy and flexible work hours that will help you have like a work-life balance. And I think that, you know, if we don't take action now, another country will. And, you know, tech and innovation is what's driving the economy. So I think 30 by 30 can change that.
Thank you so much, Sarah. That's fantastic. So I know we're short for time, but we want to hear from each of the young ladies here. So Morgan, why did the essay topic resonate with you, and what are your suggestions for STEM?
Hi, I want to make sure yes, okay, you got me. Well, this topic resonated with me. When I first saw this idea of plugging women into STEM as a focus for this essay, I was immediately, oh, I could talk about this for days. I was so excited. And this is because I'm a member of the Women in Science and Engineering program at Stony Brook University, where they are constantly challenging us to be driven and competitive in these classes which are dominated by men, and the questions are being asked by boys. And they foster and bolster us academically and socially to make sure we're thriving in these environments. And what my main focus of my essay was how important it is to establish female role models in STEM. And what I proposed was a 3-generational line. And working on this essay actually inspired me so much that I'm implementing this at Stony Brook as their civil engineering outreach coordinator this year. And
That's great.
we're working with, right now we're bringing in middle and high school girls, and they do civil engineering design challenges, and it really gets them doing hands-on math and science on a low budget for us. We're making plastic bottle submarines and all these different aspects of civil engineering that is getting girls psyched about it. And it doesn't stop there, because this 3-generational line that I want to establish gets young girls connected with college students, which they think are so cool, and it makes science cool, and that's really something we need. And then from that point, college students want to meet professionals, because the only thing a college student really is aspiring for is a well-paid job. So working with the American Society of Civil Engineers and the Stony Brook Civil Engineering Department, I've been bringing in professionals, as often as I can, women professionals, that are speaking to students that are undergrads in college,
Wow.
and inspiring us that way and networking with us. And the way I see it, this is definitely building off of what Sarah said, but you can't access success unless you meet someone who is accessing that success. So it becomes reasonable for you to become wealthy in a STEM field if you meet someone who is already having this astronomical success. So even just being here today and meeting so many leaders, that has inspired me to bring it home to my girls that I'm mentoring. And that's how we're going to pave the way for each individual girl to find success in STEM through mentorship.
That's great. Morgan is definitely playing it forward, isn't she? So that's fantastic. So Nadia, you chose to write about creating shared value, implementing it through electing more women to boards as an alternative to quotas. So talk a little bit about your approach.
Right. So in the European Union right now, there's a proposal by Vivian Reding and a number of other people for a quota that would increase the number of women on corporate boards. And to me, when I read that, I'm very excited because it's going to increase the number of women in C-suite positions. But as I continued reading it, it sort of troubled me because I didn't really understand how they could place a number on what diversity constituted or a number on what gender diversity really meant. So if you want 25 CEOs, is that diversity? It's really hard to see. So when I read Creating Shared Value, I'm a social entrepreneurship major, and we didn't have the program at my college before I got there. I helped design it. I really looked into Creating Shared Value as an extension of what I was learning in college, which was you can really pay it forward, but also increase your profits. So the way that I applied it to this situation is I developed a 3-step program. Well, there's more steps after the 3, but there are 3 main steps that can be applied to every single corporation. So the first step is communication, really knowing your employees and what barriers to their success are affecting why they're not getting to the C-suite, because the lack of women it's a symptom. It's not the disease. So you really have to treat the disease instead of like pushing women into positions that they're not really ready for. So the second one is development. So once you've realized what the problem is, you really need to implement a solution that is not only going to help the people involved, but be cost effective and be helpful for a community. And then the third, obviously, is implementation. So let's say it's about childcare, and you have a lot of women in your company who don't have access to affordable childcare or don't have access to reliable childcare, and that's why they're dropping out of your industry. You can really benefit from creating affordable childcare because now your women are staying more plugged in, they're getting to those positions, they're staying in their jobs, like they're really more involved because now they don't have to worry about where their kids are going to be. And when you push that out to the community as well as your corporation, you're helping a whole community of women who probably would have to drop out of the workforce because they had to take care of their children I apologize, I'm sick right now, but you're pushing a whole generation of women who would have to drop out of the workforce because they can't take care of their children or they can't afford healthcare or all of these other reasons to stay locked into their jobs, which is absolutely amazing because, as we know, as we've already talked about, the number of women, the number of gender diversity, the percentage of gender diversity on these firms, in these businesses, is really correlated to profits and success and all of these wonderful things that we associate with diversity. So it's really important to listen to your constituents, and creating shared value is so amazing to me as a social entrepreneurship major, and taking it back to my school. Converse College is an all-women's institution, so it's really interesting to go back, and I get to talk about this to all my classes. All of my professors are really excited about it. So I think creating shared value is a wonderful tool to increase the number of women on corporate boards if we look at it from a perspective of really helping the community, but it's a great way to get businesses interested in it because it increases your profit margin.
Thank you very much, Maddie. That's great. Last but not least, Emily, you talked about corporate policies that could support working parents. So
yes. When I was first looking at the topics, and as a sociology major, I was like instantly drawn to this. And going into it, I already knew that the United States is the only industrialized nation without job-protected paid time off, be it for medical leave, parental leave. So this is like a perfect way for me to go on one of my gender women's studies rants. And so corporate policies, in my opinion, are essential and imperative to both the families and the companies. The overview of benefits that I saw through my research was that paid parental leave keeps families financially afoot. It improves the health of mother and child. It reduces infant mortality rates and illness, and it also yields economic benefits for companies who can lower healthcare costs, and they save money on recruitment and retrainment costs because employee turnover is very expensive. And by supporting working parents, companies can create loyal, dedicated employees working for the interest of the company. And by doing that, they can improve their bottom line and then are able to support working parents. So I know nothing can really happen overnight, but I think that making progressive and humane policies part of the business model is really important for companies, regardless of their size, and that by enabling working parents through supportive and family-friendly work policies, companies can create a loyalty and dedication between employees and employers. They can, while protecting their health and financial success by retaining these employees. So some of the things that I addressed were, I had three main aspects that came to mind when looking at this. Was paid parental leave is extremely important. Maternity and paternity leave is something that I think we should look at. Google, when they noticed that women were leaving the company at such accelerated rates, they really buckled down and revamped their parental leave policy. And mothers get 18 to 22 weeks, but they also have paternity leave. They have leave for adoptive parents. They have leave for other non-biological parents, and they even give a $500 stipend to new parents. So they, when I was looking at this, technical companies were a great example of companies dedicated to supporting working parents, and they were a great model for me to research. Another thing was on-site childcare and educational programs like Head Start, KinderCare, things like that are really important from not only through having a new child, but through the years of raising the children. And government-supported childcare is something that I still don't understand why this country is so, it's like they just want to stay away from it. I don't understand it. It's really important for lower-class families, single-parent families who need that staple so that they can work to support their families. And my last thing was more of a cultural shift. I know they all mentioned maternity leave is really important for women in STEM and women on corporate boards, but a cultural shift, and what I mean is to separate childbirth from child rearing. It's really important to let women not place the entire burden on women and let them advance within a company, earn security, earn protection, not have to lose out on their pension, their promotions and things like that, and also recognizing men who want to spend time with their families without feeling like they're jeopardizing their career and their position in what they've worked for. So creating, I have an ideal of egalitarian households, which would be great for my future.
Go,
and
Emily.
I mean, I hate household chores as much as the next person. So
Give it up for Emily. Did you want to have a little?
yeah, I hope that's not too idealistic, but that's what really was driving my paper, and it just showed me how important corporate policies supporting working parents are for mothers, fathers, any kind of parents, really.
Thank you so much, Emily. You know, we've talked about that topic a lot over the years, and yet we still haven't solved for it. So I applaud you for addressing it. So we have more questions we could ask. We could have extended it to you, and I would have liked to, but we are a little bit tight on time. So I know you all will join me in one more round of applause for all of our winners here today. They are truly an inspiration, but we do want to announce on behalf of Discover, on behalf of Women Addicts, on behalf of Ambassador Melaine Vermeer, who actually read each of the finalist essays and came up with the finalist. So I have here in my hand the envelope. And the scholarship will be to help them further their studies in the way that they see fit. They get to choose that. You can tell they're all pretty responsible young ladies. And the winner of the Advancing Aspirations Global Scholarship Discover Prize is Morgan DiCarlo.